We are live, everybody. I'm going to wait a second for us to be more live than we are now. But here we go. I got a confession to make. I used to be 330 pounds, but what people don't know is I've been part of a special research team, and I've been on Retatrutide the entire time. I learned about Retatrutide about 20 years ago, and I started taking it when I was done with my powerlifting career. I was approached by some people, cannot mention their names, but they approached me, and they told me about this kind of miracle thing they had. I was really suspicious, but I did it anyway and knocked off over 100 pounds. Obviously, I'm kidding. But I am on Retatrutide now. So I was lying before, but now I'm telling the truth, kind of like a politician. You on board? You guys understand? Yeah, so I have started Retatrutide. I started it probably about 3 weeks ago. I started at 0.5 milligrams. For those of you that don't know about Retatrutide, I guess let me just explain a little bit. And I don't know I don't know all the different ins and outs of this stuff. So listen to other folks that are more well-informed than me on these particular subjects. But as many people know, there's the GLP-1s, right? And they have had some success with weight loss, but some of the weight loss has also been muscle mass. Well, Retatrutide is supposed to be a triple agonist, and it's supposed to be something that helps to mitigate the weight loss being, muscle mass. So you're supposed to be able to just basically lose fat on Retatrutide. Not saying that you can't lose muscle on it. I'm sure that you still could, because anytime you're in a caloric deficit, there's always the possibility of losing muscle mass. No matter what diet plan you follow, no matter what bodybuilder you talk to, almost all of them would tell you, even with a lot of performance enhancing drugs in the picture, almost all of them always lose muscle mass when going from, and one way that you can kind of tell that you lose muscle mass is some of the loss in strength. Obviously, you're losing weight too, so it's kind of hard to tell sometimes, but let's just play along and let's just assume that if for every, 20 pounds of body fat that you lose, that some muscle mass is going to, be part of that 20 pounds, right? Like maybe 2 pounds or maybe 5 pounds, depending on how good of a regimen you have and depending on other things, genetics and so forth. Anyway, Retatrutide is the tits. It's the bee's knees. Everyone's talking about it everywhere. And as you guys know, I have a goal to be 200 pounds. I'm not in any real hurry to weigh 200 pounds. I don't have to weigh 200 pounds tomorrow. But I did want to expedite this process, and I found that it's very difficult for me to lose weight. And yes, I know I could count calories, and I know that there's like strategies I can employ, and there's things that I could do right now that would assist me with weight loss that are natural. But why not utilize the performance enhancing side of things? So I'm on some other things other than just Retatrutide. But one of the reasons why I chose Retatrutide was for all the other things that it can do on top of weight loss. It's supposed to be able to help with visceral fat. It's supposed to be able to help your liver. It's supposed to be able to help a lot of your markers when you get your blood work done. It's supposed to be able to basically have your blood work look better to have you appear healthier. Whether you are healthy or not, I don't know, because I don't know how long this stuff's been out for or how long people have been messing with it. I would say, we had this mentioned long ago on our podcast. Probably one of the first places you guys ever heard about it was from Vigorous Steve. And that was probably at least 3 years ago, maybe 2 years ago, but I'm thinking more like 3. Ryan, do you remember when that was?
Yeah, I think it was about 3 years ago. I could look up the podcast.
Yeah, it was about 3 years ago. We did a podcast with Vigorous Steve. Ryan will find what podcast it was. But let's just get into it more because, and this is an experiment that I'm running, right? So this isn't real life. This is like hypothetical experiment that I'm doing. I'm not actually on Retatrutide, right? Wink, wink. It's for my pet skunk, right? Because people don't want you to talk about things that aren't FDA approved. Retatrutide at the moment is not FDA approved. It's been through a few trials. I think it's been through a first, second, and third phase of trials, I believe, and maybe even a fourth one. But it's showing some really great success with weight loss. all the way to the point, what intrigued me and what set me over the top for this thing was that people were utilizing 1 milligram of Retatrutide per week, and they were losing 17% of their body weight. 17%. That was for a year, or it was like close to a year, it's like 48 weeks or something like that. Okay. 17% is quite a, in my opinion, quite a bit of weight. And that's kind of exactly what I was looking for. I'm like, okay, well, that sounds pretty nice. I don't have to take a lot of it. So if for some reason it does turn out that it is dangerous, then I'm on a what I would consider to be a fairly low dosage of it. And so hopefully, if there are negative sides, remember there's negative sides to everything. Like, so I'm not going to sit here and pretend that this doesn't have negative side effects for this hypothetical situation I'm talking about here today. So I started at 0.5 milligrams one time per week, 0.5 milligrams one time per week. And I've done that for the last maybe 2 or 3 weeks. And then this week, I started doing 1 milligram once a week. And then I'm going to work my way up to 1.5. And I'm hoping to land on about 2 milligrams and kind of see where that puts me. Thus far, I have not lost weight, but there are some interesting things going on. I am hammering a lot of food. My hunger has gone down a bit. The little dancing in my head of like the food at night and that kind of stuff, a lot of that has calmed down. People call it food noise. A lot of the food noise has calmed down. So I'm very happy about that. But yeah, I am hoping to like get to a milligram dosage where I start to notice some weight loss. Now, I would say that you probably need to like sit at a milligram dosage for a little bit. And then, maybe that takes a minute to take effect. And then once it takes effect is probably when the weight loss starts. Unlike some of the other peptides that are for appetite, it appears that Retatrutide is also helping with a fat burning process via glucagon. At least that's some of my understanding of it. So anyway, I'm just going to throw at you guys some of the other stuff that I'm doing. So thus far, the most amount of Retatrutide I've taken in this hypothetical situation is 1 milligram. And I'm going to do that every week for a little bit, work my way to 1.5, and probably do that for a week or two, and then work my way to about 2 milligrams. And again, it's just a shot one time per week. There are people that are fans of doing a small amount every day. And as much as I've looked into that and researched that, I didn't find that to be favorable amongst most people. I found that what kind of kept coming back over and over again was people resting on somewhere between 1 to 3 times a week seems to be the magic sauce. There does seem to be a connection to estrogen. So females that are considering the hypotheticals of this would actually use more. I said that wrong. Scratch that. I'd not use more. They will. It's live, so it's great. They're not going to necessarily need to use more. They're going to probably need more frequent injections. So a female, rather than 1 time per week, maybe 2 or 3 times per week might be favorable for them, or males that have maybe a little bit more estrogen. There's some sort of synergy with estrogen. Again, listen to Vigorous Steve. Listen to your favorite person that reports on these things, such as Retatrutide, and check out the different information. What podcast was that? Did you ever figure out what show it was?
It looked like it was from 4 years ago. So these are the ones that
awesome
we have.
Yeah, so that's a long ass time ago, 4 years ago. Vigorous Steve was talking about this stuff, and I kept that filed away, and I was like, you know what? Maybe at some point, maybe one day I will look into utilizing that. And I got to this point, I lost maybe 110, 115, 100, maybe almost like 120 pounds at one point. And it's just been difficult. I just been like stuck. And again, I know the strategies to do all this. I know I could do a little bit of cardio. I know I could like walk more. I know I could eat less. I know I could count calories. I know I could do the carnivore diet, the keto diet, the sugar diet. I know I can do all these different things. The sugar diet had me resting at like 208 to 210, which was really nice. And that is something that I probably will do seasonally. I'll probably hit that up again at some point. But currently, and I'll go over my diet in a minute. I'll just get through all this peptide-y stuff first. But at the moment, I'm just on this like balanced diet where I'm listening to a guy named Mike Fave, who I've had on the show before. And Mike talks about eating protein, carbs, fats, and fiber, and really kind of seeking those things out in every single meal. And I'm enjoying that. I don't know how long I'll do it. If it continues to be something that is assisting and helping my blood work, then I will probably continue on with it for as long as I can, really. It feels good. I'm enjoying some macadamia nuts, some macadamia nut butter. I'm enjoying some olive oil along with grass-fed beef and a whole laundry list of other things. Side note, by the way, speaking of grass-fed beef, I always talk about Piedmontese. You guys hear me talk about them all the time. If you want a discount from them, you can use the code MarkBell if you go to certifiedpiedmontese.com. They have the leanest sources of grass-fed steaks that you'll ever find. The filet, it registers 0 grams of fat, which is just unbelievable. I realize the fillets might be a little, they might cost a lot because fillets cost a lot. That's what they do. And Certified Piedmontese, a lot of the stuff you're going to see on their site is going to cost a lot. It's because it's of high value. Nothing compares. I mean, I hear people all the time like, oh yeah, I chopped out beef because I'm trying to eat like leaner food. And I'm always like, why wouldn't they just order Certified Piedmontese beef? Their steaks are leaner than chicken, and steak just tastes way better than chicken. So it doesn't make any sense to me why people aren't just always going to this website. Bavette steaks, tri-tips. Tri-tips have like 2 or 3 grams of fat per serving. The Bavette steaks, you can, as you look on their site, you can find things that are more affordable. They still might be pricey, but they're just the price that they are because it's grass-fed, grass-finished, regenerative beef. These cows are, I've been to their location before. I've been actually to their farms, to their ranches. I've seen cows, and I'm really happy to announce that I'm going to be selling this on my website as well. But for now, you can go over to Certified Piedmontese and you can get their grass-finished beef liver. So they have beef liver capsules now. And I've been talking with them about this for a really long time, and I'm so grateful that they brought this to the market. This has taken them a little while to kind of figure it out because, as you can imagine, it's a different thing than just butchering some steaks up and cutting up some steaks and selling them online. This is a completely different thing. Freeze drying liver like that comes from the grass-fed, grass-finished, regenerative cows that they have. The cows are also non-GMO and everything's certified. Like that's why it's called Certified Piedmontese beef, is because they go through every checkpoint that you can possibly imagine. And I just can't talk about them enough. I've had such a great relationship with them. I appreciate they have supported and sponsored this podcast from the beginning, along with another great sponsor of the podcast is Merrick Health as well. Shout out to them. And I'll give them more praises in another episode, or maybe as I finish talking about some of these peptides, I'll give them a little plug. But anyway, I just wanted to go on that little rant about Certified Piedmontese beef because I'm fired up about these beef liver. And just, you can just look some of this stuff up on your own about like, what you're getting from liver. But I believe there's like all the fat soluble vitamins you're getting. And people know that there's like almost no better multivitamin on the planet than beef liver. You might need to substitute some other, nutrients from various things. You might need to get some magnesium and some other things. It doesn't contain every single thing you need to live your life. But beef liver is a great source of a lot of things. It's something I've been using for years. It's the reason why my steak shakes, the total carnivore shakes. It's the reason why I put liver, kidney, heart, and spleen and pancreas, because I believe in that movement. I believe in eating meat, and I believe in eating organs. back to this, I guess we'll just call it like a Smelly's fat loss stack for my Smelly skunk. I'm using tesamorelin at 1 milligram, and I have written here every day, but I just realized I don't take it every day. I take it probably 2 or 3 times a week, and that's what you're probably going to hear from these growth hormone secretagogues, I believe they're called. They're not taken like all the time. They're not taken every single day for a lot of people, because some people believe the pulsatile versions of some people believe in pulsing your growth hormone is more effective. Something to keep in mind: tesamorelin and some of these other morellins, ipamorelin, these are all things that aren't going to necessarily tamper with, or it's believed they're not going to tamper with your own natural production of growth hormone. So you can look at this almost like as an enclomiphene. It's my understanding that enclomiphene is something that will allow you to increase your testosterone levels without it negatively impacting your own body's ability to produce testosterone. So it's interesting to try to find these things that you could just take growth hormone, and bodybuilders known this for years. Track athletes known this for years. Sorry, track athletes, but your sport is dirty, just like the rest of them. Track athletes known this for years. Like growth hormone and insulin they're very, very strong compounds, and they work very well synergistically together. But growth hormone can cause insulin sensitivity issues. It's been shown to cause some insulin resistance in some people. And then that's where the bodybuilders, utilize insulin with growth hormone. There's not recommendations for any of you to do any of this stuff. It's just stuff that I have observed over the years. So I take tesamorelin 1 milligram, and I'm probably doing it about 3 or 4 times per week. I'll have to check with some of my favorite sources on, how much of that to take and to utilize. Alex Kickle is a great resource. Follow Alex Kickle, go on his Instagram, check out what he has to offer. Alex does courses and classes on this stuff on YouTube and it's many other places as he can think of. He has he's got like classes and courses on this stuff. I personally also like following Trevor Bachmeyer. Trevor is an interesting person. He may not be loved by everybody because he's entertaining and he gets all fired up and he's very passionate about this stuff. And so I think that in his passion, I think that sometimes people might be like, well, this guy's arrogant or whatever. But anyway, he's got great information as well. And he's where I've learned a lot of this information, and he's somebody that I rely on as a source. So one thing I want to comment about in terms of that, what I don't understand about people is, so this is how polarizing Trevor is. This is how good he is at what he does. They made AI videos of him. They use a different dude. It's like, I want to say maybe it's like an Asian guy or something. But they've taken his exact words, word for word. But what they did is they got rid of some of the banter that he has that might be perceived by some people as being negative. Because Trevor he'll bitch. When he starts going on a rant, he'll start bitching and moaning a bit. And somebody took it upon themselves to make a separate YouTube channel, which may have been taken down. I'm sure there's probably some lawyers involved in that one because it was just so blatant. It was the blatant stealing of his material. Anyway, he's good at his job and he's got great information. So sometimes I get a little discouraged with people sometimes because I'm like, okay, you said you hate Lane Norton. Okay. And that means that you can't learn from him. Like, I don't understand. Or you don't like that Knees Over Toes did this or said that, but that means you can't learn anything from him. I mean, I think that's childish. I think that's something that people should really review and people should really learn and try to understand, have a better understanding of yourself. Why are you doing that? Why would you shoot yourself in the foot? Imagine like if I have Donald Trump on my podcast, now all of a sudden you don't ever listen to anything. You just discredit everything I've ever said or did because I don't like Trump. I don't like I'm hanging out with Trump. It's like, well, to each their own. You have your own people that you can go to. And if you're agitated by something that someone says, then I understand. But I also think that we're making a big mistake. And I'm not just pointing the finger at you guys. I'm pointing the finger at the mirror because a lot of this, is done by myself too. I've done this before where you kind of write someone off, like I'm not listening to that guy anymore. But if someone has good information, I think that your ears should still perk up and still listen to them on certain things. Just because you may not agree with some of the other things they do or say, I still think it's a nice opportunity to learn. So I do understand. I get it. I understand sometimes people get underneath your skin too much. So continuation with the fat loss stack: 1 milligram of testosterone a week, 1 milligram of Retatrutide a week. MOTS-C is something I'm taking about 2 or 3 times a week, between 2.5 milligrams and 5 milligrams. And then ipamorelin is at 200 mcgs a couple times a week as well. And that will probably come up. All this stuff might come up a little bit. Some people have told me, the MOTS-C, they're like, you're probably going to have to take more of that. I've heard from other people to take a little less. And then as far as SLUP 332, I'm trying to find out what's safe, because that product started out in the basement in terms of how much to take. It started so low. It started on the microgram level, and then all of a sudden it got into the milligram level. And I've been somebody who's been paying attention to that. I have used that product before when it was at the lower dosage. And then I heard of people just taking like 10 times the amount. And I was like, whoa, I'm not part of that party. I don't understand what that is. So I'm kind of waiting. I'm like not 100% sure. Like, hey, should I take that? So I'll have to run it up the chain and ask, I think Trevor, he doesn't think it's effective at all in a capsule form. And I'll run it up the chain. I'll ask Alex Kickle and a couple other friends that are in the know on these topics. Luckily, I have people that I can communicate with. Stan Efferding is someone I communicate with on these topics as well. But Stan, I actually go to a little bit more for I go to Stan a little bit more for general health, believe it or not. Stan has been somebody that's been really, really deep in the weeds on studying like heart disease, longevity, and that kind of stuff. And that's like his area of expertise, where he has a good understanding on a lot of different things. But that's where I'm at with this stack. And some people could be like, "Oh, you're way off. How come you're not taking? How come you're not taking this or that?" This is what I'm doing. This is just what I sort of came up with and collaborated with a couple other folks. And this is the information that I got to doing these things. And I've only been doing it for a short period of time. So I don't have anything to report in terms of like, hey, it's done this for me. Some people feel that the morellins, testosterone, ipamorelin, that could help with recovery. Some people feel that those things help with sleep. I personally haven't really found anything that has really helped my sleep. I do not know what it's like to go through a night and just be like, whoa, I think I slept through the whole night. I wake up, use the bathroom, I wake up here and there, and that's just the way that I sleep. And I sleep for probably maybe a total of 6 hours. I think the 8-hour thing is garbage. I think that's like made up by somebody. They just made up like some thing about you have to sleep 8 hours. But regardless of that, I don't disagree that I could probably use more sleep and that I could probably use better quality sleep. So it is something that, and people are like, what? I'm trying to try this stack, try the magnesium. And I understand all that. I even make a formula. I have Cozy Cocoa. You can go and check that out on my Within You brand website. By the way, check out this Within You brand hoodie. I wanted to show this to you guys in the beginning and I totally forgot. I was wearing it earlier, but then we got too hot because Ryan and I were outside running routes and throwing passes and stuff. We were messing around with football this morning. But this is my Within You brand hoodie right here, sitting here. And then you can also see I'm wearing some of the new apparel that we have. All this stuff can be purchased at MarkBellSlingshot.com. The Cozy Cocoa is absolutely delicious. It has all the same stuff that you get from the total carnivore shake and the steak shake: liver, kidney, heart, spleen, pancreas. Very nutrient dense. It also has about 20 grams of protein per scoop. That protein is beef protein isolate along with collagen. And there's magnesium in there as well, and a couple other things to kind of help kind of calm you down. There's no melatonin in there. There's no like weird sleep aid, because I didn't want it to be something that makes you like just like crash hardcore and like pass out and fall asleep and never wake up again. It was more like, let's just kind of have something that's like a little bit soothing, something to relax at the end of the day. And I mix that a lot of times in the evening. I'll do one of two things. Sometimes I'll just mix it with hot water and blend it up, and I throw in a scoop of chocolate hydration as well to make it even more chocolatey, and then it's just unbelievable. And I'll throw some whipped cream on top. You got to throw whipped cream on top if you're going to make chocolate, right? You got to do that. So I'll do that quite often. And the other thing that I'll do is I'll mix it with decaf coffee, because we always use, my wife and I use decaf beans, and so I just hit the button on the old coffee maker, and that just goes into the coffee cup, and I just take a little like frother thing and go and just mix that stuff up and drink that before bed every night. And I just really enjoy it. And if it's not necessarily conking you out and making you fall asleep and drool all over the place, at the very least, it's giving you a lot of good nutrients along with protein. And it also has no allergens in it. There's no whey, there's no dairy, there's no artificial sweeteners, there's no gluten. So clean, crisp as always, just like the steak shake and just like the total carnivore shake. Any questions, Ryan, on any of the peptide stuff, and like what are some of your thoughts?
Yeah, so with the Retta, are you eating with the same frequency that you were before?
I'm actually trying to eat. It sounds kind of counterintuitive, but I'm trying to eat more. Like, I don't know if you've noticed, but like, just the other day I had that beef jerky, right? I had beef jerky, a banana. Like, I'm just trying to like, I'm not like packing meals with me, but I'm like, I should probably get a few hundred calories when I'm out, because like if I'm going to work or podcasting, or we're filming some lifting in the gym and filming various things, we could spend 4 hours, 6 hours, 8 hours together, probably 6 hours, but we spend that amount of time together. I'm like, I should probably eat something while I'm out and while I'm away from my house, get some protein, get some fat, get some carbs. And so I've been doing that. And so the meal frequency is probably anywhere, on the low end might be like, it might be four times in a day where I consume calories. On a high end, it might be more like 6 or 7. So I'm trying to be pretty deliberate. And then actual meals though is like, probably full on meals is like 3 or 4, full on meals, 3 or 4 a day. And then it might be a couple of kind of small things here or there.
And then when you do actually like sit down to eat a meal, do you feel like it makes you sort of like eat slower or eat less? Or
I do eat slow anyway. I'm kind of a slow eater. Yeah, what will happen is I'll eat a bunch of food. I'll sit down to eat a bunch of food, because I usually just like make something like fills up my whole pan, and I kind of eat with my eyes. I always overload my plate and dish and bowl, and like I just have this like giant thing of food. And now that I eat carbs and stuff too, it's like there's just more. It's like there's more volume of food, because the carbs are really like nothing calorie wise. And the meat that I'm eating is like fairly lean. And so I do end up with like a pile of food. And what will happen is I will get about halfway, and sometimes you get about halfway and you're like, oh, I don't know if I'll finish this whole thing. And then maybe you just wait a second and then you eat a little bit more. And then you kind of realize like, oh, I was pretty hungry. And then you just polish the whole thing off. Well, now I'm getting that halfway point, and I might just eat a couple more scoops, because I'm like, I do need the protein. I want to make sure the Retta doesn't completely shut down my appetite. And so I'll maybe eat a little bit more, but then I'll put the rest in the fridge and then like eat it later. So that's kind of how the more meal frequency sort of came to be, because I'm like, I'll still just cook very similar to the way I was cooking before, but now these are like in divided meals. So I think thus far, if I was to like put a percentage on it, I do think that I'm probably eating like maybe 10% less um, food. Now, am I getting in the same amount of calories? That part gets to be a little tricky because I am eating things like I do have dark chocolate is in my diet. I eat sourdough bread, and I'll put like macadamia nut butter on there and stuff. So I do have things that can like jack the calories up in a heartbeat. And so I probably moving forward just need to be a little bit more conscious of those things. And as far as the dark chocolate goes, it's not like I'm scarfing down like 2 bars of dark chocolate. It's like on some days I might eat the equivalent of like 3/4 of a bar, and on other days I might eat like the equivalent of half a bar. But again, the fat calories go up fast when you eat something like that. I still will occasionally have a keto brick too. And as you know, a keto brick has 1,000 calories, but the keto brick, the ones that I'm eating, those are the ones that utilize the steak shake. It's a collaboration I did, and that one has a lot of stearic acid in there. So I'm in my diet, I'm supposed to try to get a good amount of stearic acid and monounsaturated fats to help with lipid profile. Stearic acid is in grass-fed beef, but stearic acid is also very, very high. I think one of the highest forms of stearic acid is chocolate. And so I will have the Bell Brownie chocolate keto brick, because a keto brick is made primarily of cacao. It's cacao butter, and cacao butter is 33% stearic acid. Stearic acid is supposed to be healthy for you. It's supposed to be good for your heart, your arteries. There has been speculation that saturated fat isn't the best thing, especially in combination with like highly processed foods and the standard American diet for heart health. I know that they flipped the pyramid upside down like they did on South Park, and now that's our new food chart that we have going. But anyway, stearic acid is supposed to be, and that's I mean, we did an entire podcast on stearic acid because we had the croissant diet guy on the show, and that was that his theory is that French people, the French paradox, the people in France eating croissants, like how do they get away with it? And this guy's theory was, well, maybe they get away with it because maybe there's something up with croissants. And what he found was the saturated fat that's in the butter has stearic acid in it. And stearic acid, for some reason, there's certain fats that like, I don't even remember some of the information, but they like bypass the liver or something like that, or they're utilized by the liver, and they just don't get used as the same. It's kind of like MCT oil. MCT oil is a faster acting energy. So there's different types of fats, and fats act differently in the body. And stearic acid, one of those that it's not a freebie. It's not like it's like 0 calories or anything, but it seems to be maybe a little bit healthier than some of the other fats, and there's some advantages to utilizing it.
Yeah, I guess with some people on Retta, do they ever get like I don't know, do they ever have like a lack of enjoyment? Because like when you're hungry and then you have a good meal, sometimes it can almost be like euphoric. Have you noticed like anything with that, or do you know anything about other people that are on maybe a more higher dose of Retta, where they aren't enjoying food the same way?
I do know what you're talking about. I mean, there's some people that have started to experiment with higher dosages. I would like to also say that in the beginning, I did mention that there was a 17% reduction in weight loss after 1 year of people that utilized 1 milligram, but there was also a 37% reduction in body weight from people that used 12 milligrams, which is wild. And that sounds like it would like, totally hurt your stomach or mess you up from some of the things I've heard of people not taking their time with taking Retatrutide. You go something you want to start low and slow and take your time and then titrate up slowly. But that is something that they did in the studies, is those people took their time taking it. Most of what I'm hearing and most of what I see the various influencers talking about it online and some of the research that I've done, it seems like most people don't want to get into the higher dosages for the exact reason that you said. like they do want to like, watch the playoff games this weekend. They do want to sit down and be able to eat like more than 2 wings. They don't want to like cook up a batch of buffalo wings with their wife and a couple friends, and then like they can only eat like 2 of them, or go to Buffalo Wild Wings and sip down half a beer and have 1 mozzarella stick, and then you can't eat anything else. It can take some of the enjoyment. I think food is entertainment. It's an experience, but you think about, sometimes you go to a restaurant, sometimes like some restaurants are great. You get fed plenty, but a lot of times you still like want something more after you get home from the restaurant. You want to have a protein shake or a protein bar or a legendary donut. And there's nothing wrong with any of those things. Those are all decent choices, and that's what those foods are for. But when you're on Retatrutide, my experience thus far is like that noise has just dropped significantly. I would like this evening, like we're going to eat, and we're going to a place called Bud's, which is in Dixon, California. It's like a little kind of almost like dive bar type place that just has awesome kick-ass food. We really, really like it a lot. And that spot, I'll get like steak and a baked potato, and I'll be plenty full when I come home from there. But I always want to like have something more. And in the past, I would probably, even though I would still consume fairly healthy stuff, I would probably eat way more calories than I need. And now that I'm on Retatrutide, that same food noise isn't there. And maybe when I come home, I do still rip open a bag of legendary donuts, but I just eat like 1 because it comes with 2, and I might just eat 1, and then my wife might eat the other one, something like that. So yeah, it really calms down some of the impediment of food. Like food is, you're always just thinking about food. You're thinking like, I need to bring food with me. What am I going to have for lunch? What am I going to have for dinner? What am I going to eat this morning? What am I going to have for breakfast? At least that's like my life always centers around food. I love it. And so a lot of times when I come here, I might not think a ton about food for a little while, but then as the day goes on, and I start thinking about like, if I didn't get a workout in yet, I'm thinking like, well, I should probably just go home and eat and then work out because I didn't really eat much today. So some of that gets dampened, but I think it's important to like keep some of that around. You don't want to like have that completely, dissolved. And you don't want to become nutrient deficient. So something to keep an eye on, anybody who's going to experiment with any of this stuff, you definitely need to keep your protein in there, and you definitely need to like get in a certain amount of food every day. I think for most people listen to this podcast, they probably want to be like jacked, right? And if you want to be jacked, then you need a certain amount of calories, but you also don't need 5,000 calories, and you probably don't need 3,500 calories. I mean, the truth is we could probably use quite a bit less food than what we think. I know that Dr. Trevor has talked about carbohydrate, how he feels like you really need carbohydrate on Retatrutide. And I've seen some conjecture on that video, seen some people going back and forth. I think like, it's going to just like individual, it's going to highly, matter who you are and what style of diet that you like. But I also think that if you're on Retatrutide, I don't really think there's any real good reason to also not eat carbs. Like, you could experiment with it. You could try it, but I think a little bit of carbohydrate would go a long way. And I think that you want to try to figure out a way. You want to actually work backwards from everything that I've told you on this podcast, because so much of what I've taught over the years are ways and a defense to try to like eat less in some degree. I want you to eat, but I want you to have a strategy that is employed that assists you in keeping your calories under control. And you keep your calories under control with protein leveraging. You keep your calories under control by having some fruit with you. Like if you were to eat a thing of yogurt, an apple, and a protein shake right before you left work every day, coming back home from work, you wouldn't raid the pantry the same way. You eat your apple or you eat your yogurt, while you're still at work. And then in your car, you have the apple and the protein shake on the road, on your way home from work, on your way home to go eat at home, on your way, you're going to have dinner, right? But how many of you are raiding your pantry frantically and trying to like cook something up, or stopping at fast food, or whatever the bullshit is that you do? That can all be eliminated by doing some of the strategies I've shared on this podcast for years. However, when you're on Retatrutide, you got to be kind of careful about that. If you eat an apple, that could curb your appetite maybe for way too long. So it's going to depend on the person and depend on the dosage. That's not happening to me. Like, my hunger still, I have a ferocious appetite because I really like food. So it's been tough for me, like, even though I've lost 100 pounds and stuff, I think if I was just to kind of have free reign on the food, not necessarily so I would never really go back to eating like bullshit food. That was actually just a small time frame of my life for powerlifting. That was for the love of the game. You can look at it that way. I never really loved eating like junk food, although at that time I did get way into it. I got like kind of in over my head and got addicted to the food. But in general, I love the flavor of high quality food is what I really enjoy and I really like. But yeah, if I had it my way, I'd probably end up weighing like 240, 250 real easy. And here I am trying to get down to 200. So it makes it kind of tough. But we're going to get there. I'm going to get there. I'm going to get myself to 200. And if I have to use a little assistance to get there, then I don't think there's anything wrong with that. And also too, I'll finish on this note about Retatrutide for a second here. Is that, people feeling shame, towards utilizing these drugs, is just a really unfortunate thing. I think like in the bodybuilding community, and I mentioned this many times before on this podcast, and I've been, especially like now that Retatrutide is so much in the norm, nearly every expert that we've had come here, I've asked all of them about Retatrutide repeatedly and asked them about these GLP-1s and if bodybuilders are using them and if they're interested. And they're like, no. Like, I don't think bodybuilding. I'm like, what are you talking about? So I've known this the whole time that that's why I made the joke about how I've been utilizing it the whole time and how I lost 100. I did not use it. It wasn't anything I knew about. And if I knew about it, I probably would have used it, which would have been great. Probably would have made things maybe happen a little faster or happen a little easier, or maybe my blood work the entire time would have been a little bit better. One thing about weight loss that is interesting is that it's, you're causing a lot of like beta oxidation. The burning of fat is not necessarily the healthiest thing. It's not an unhealthy thing necessarily either. But if that's all your body's doing for years and years and years and years and years, then I think it leaves a scar. I think it leaves a little bit of a dent. And had I done it with something like Retatrutide, maybe I wouldn't have had to employ strategies that were as extreme. You see where I'm going with this? Like, there's stressors when you fast, when you do a ketogenic diet, when you do the carnivore diet. Yeah, it turns on some of these things that can be accelerant to help you lose weight. There's a lot of different things it can do. The production of ketones, all this stuff's great, but it does turn on some, there is a little negativity with it as well, right? There is turning on some stress hormones, and also being a caloric deficit is turning on a stress hormone. But what if you're in a caloric deficit, but you barely realize it? That's what Retatrutide is. What if you're in a caloric deficit, but you barely realize it? That's what Retatrutide is. That's what it does. How dope is that? That's sick. Remember what Louis Simmons said. And, bigger, stronger, faster will never be over. There still has to be a second one of that. Because Louis Simmons opened the floodgates and opened the doorway for there to be a sequel by saying this: what if they make something better than steroids? What are they going to do then? Well, here we are. We're at that spot. Because until Retatrutide came out, You know, it's interesting to listen to all these influencers, right? They'll say, hey, listen, and they're trying to get you with this hook. Want to lose body fat? Want to gain muscle? Like that's how they get you, right? And they start talking about this particular peptide that was created by the Russians or this particular peptide. Guess what also does that? Steroids, 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 steroids. They're awesome. That's what they do. They're amazing. You know what helps you burn fat and build muscle like nothing we've ever seen on this planet before? Trenbolone. Can I get an amen? Trenbolone's unbelievable. It's why people talk about it all the time. It causes a cascade of all kinds of different things that happen. Yes, there's some negative side effects to it, just like there's some negative side effects to taking insulin. But insulin's also amazing. Insulin's really powerful. Insulin can do some really miraculous shit that people just, they barely know about these things. But steroids are awesome. They do some really amazing things. They can change your body composition like nothing we've ever seen. And now, finally, Retatrutide comes out and some of these other peptides that came before it, the GLP-1s and stuff. And there's something else on the market that actually works. I used to go to trade shows all the time with the Slingshot. And people would get up off the bench and they'd say, oh my God, this thing actually works. This is awesome. Put me down. I want to get 2 of these. Put me down. I want to get 3 of these. Oh, I want to buy these for my son's football team. People were blown away. They're like, oh my God, something in the fitness industry actually works. You're never going to take vitamin C. You're never going to take magnesium. You're never going to take you're not going to take creatine. You're not going to take a collagen gummy. You're not going to take apple cider vinegar, glutamine, taurine. You're not going to take any of this stuff and have it ever really feel like or look like it made any difference at all. Whether it be the tesamorelins or the different morelins or all these different things, yes, they can probably make some marked improvements on your blood work. And tesamorelin actually is an interesting one because it does have an FDA approval, and it does appear that it does help to get rid of visceral fat. But again, visceral fat, you're not going to like go into the office 6 weeks from now and you lost 12% of your visceral fat and Bob in accounting's all pumped because you're all shredded. It doesn't work that way. You just like lost fat from your liver. So you still look the same. Like everything is similar. I'm not saying that tesamorelin can't help you and assist you to look different, but it's not going to work like trenbolone. It's not going to work like steroids. We're letting it fly over here. Hopefully this channel doesn't get canceled forever, but this is all hypotheticals. These aren't things that I actually do. There's things that I am just speculating on a little bit, but it is interesting, in this era of the peptides, and I'm doing them. I'm a fan. I've been doing them for a long time. I've been talking about them for a long time. I actually was thinking the other day, like how interesting where we're at now, and just thinking of introducing people, friends of mine from years and years ago, to BPC 157, to TB 500, to things I've learned from my good friend Carl Lenore, Superhuman Radio. Shout out to Superhuman Radio and my buddy Carl Lenore. If you're not following Carl, he unfortunately has had some near-death experiences as of late. Carl is in his early 60s and has had some really unfortunate circumstances, but he's had one of the greatest podcasts ever invented or ever created, with Superhuman Radio, where he has uncovered all kinds of different things and had leading experts on talking about thymosin alpha 1, which is a little bit like TB, a little bit like TB 500, slightly different than TB 500, but supposed to be good for anyone who's had like cardiac events and things like that. It's supposed to be great for the immune system. He's also had people come on and talk about just all kinds of stuff that, then, I don't know, 10, 15 years later, now people are talking about it. So I've been paying attention to this stuff for a long time. As far as me actually utilizing the peptides for myself, I've only just tampered with them years ago, utilizing like BPC and TB500 for injuries and stuff. Kind of towards the tail end of my powerlifting career, but I didn't really know what I had in my hands. I didn't know what I was dealing with. I didn't really understand it. I thought I was, I would do a couple shots and I'm like, I don't know if I notice anything. Well, now I just kind of understand, like, oh, it's like a protocol. Okay, it's more like a protocol. Okay, this stuff, because all I knew at that time when I was powerlifting, all I knew was, lifting heavy and take steroids, because steroids work. You take them and they work quickly. And you take more of them and they work even better. Like, they just work awesomely. So anything else I would take in comparison to it, it would just be like non-existent. Like, it would barely do anything. So you're like, well, why would I even take that? I don't understand. Why would I take something that I'm not, like, someone's like, hey, how's your hamstring? Like, I don't know. It still feels torn. Stuff like that. But now I have a better understanding of it. And I have a better understanding of, like, it's something that you utilize in a regimen. And then when you're done with the regimen, somebody say, how did it work? You're like, I'm still not sure. Because you're not sure how effective it is, but it seems like it's more effective than not using it. That's what I've learned from it. I did tear my hamstring a while back, and I utilized the copper peptide, along with BPC 157 and TB 500, and just injected it into my hamstring every single day until my hamstring didn't hurt anymore. And I still take a little bit of the BPC and the TB 500. I don't take the copper as much because I'm like, the shots kind of hurt. I'm like, I don't love taking shots that hurt. So all that has been, like, I think it's been regenerative. I think it's been helpful. And I'm kind of hoping that these growth hormone products, I hope that they assist a little bit with, maybe I just get a little bit deeper sleep. Maybe I barely notice it, but maybe just from a health perspective, I get a little bit deeper sleep, and maybe I get a few more points and stickers on my blood work when I get my blood work back. That would be cool. MOT-C, it does seem, I'm saying MOT-C, MOT-C. That one does seem to have a pretty profound effect on some people in terms of losing body fat. But I'm still so new to it that I can't really comment on what it's doing there. I would also say this. Other than the Retatrutide, you're not really going to do, like, you're not necessarily going to get shredded unless your diet is reflective of being shredded. The Retatrutide can probably take care of quite a bit of stuff. It can probably help lower those calories to a certain point where you probably can get pretty lean. But that's you basically eventually taking measures to get really lean, which is like you're in some sort of caloric deficit that represents something that's going to make a marked difference. But I think that probably the best benefit is going to be, fairly clean eating, even including like the Retatrutide. So those of you that think it's going to be like a miracle, it can be a miracle because it can assist you. And over time, like while you're taking the Retatrutide, I think, like, let's say someone's 350 pounds and they want to take it, right? It can be a miracle for someone like that because over time, maybe they can get a better handle. So once they get a handle on their hunger, once they get a handle on that appetite, then they'll be able to get a handle on the disease of obesity, which is the addiction to the food, which is like an appetite that can barely be satisfied, right? That's in my opinion, that's what someone that's obese is dealing with. And even though I was 330 pounds, I wasn't officially recognized by other obese people as being part of the club. So these are all just things that I speculate that obese people struggle with. But a few friends of mine that deal with obesity, these are some of the things that happen. And if they can calm down their appetite and they can have that be a little bit more satisfied, then they can get better control over their food choices, right? Like it's like they have too much going on at the moment to just all of a sudden like make better decisions. But I think the Retatrutide over time will help them make better decisions. Now, another interesting thing about a product like Retatrutide is supposed to help with like addictions and stuff. So I have some friends who are like, "Hey, sayonara to drinking." They're drinking less, or they're not drinking at all, which is crazy because like some people I know, they really enjoy drinking. They've really loved it for a long time, and then they've gotten rid of it. So just some interesting shit going on with all these peptides. I think we're in a really cool, interesting spot. Anything to add there, Ryan?
Yeah, there was somebody in the chat said something about kratom and caffeine. They're also on Retta. I'm trying to find it right now. I think they said that it blunted the effects of caffeine and kratom. Do you know anything about that?
That Retatrutide. Let's do a search. Let's ask ChatGPT. That's above my pay grade. I've never heard anything quite like that. But I mean, you know, kratom is like a dope. It's like dopamine hanging on a tree. You know, so there could be some dopamine interaction, maybe from the GLP-1, or I don't know.
All right, let's see what ChatGPT says. Yes, Retatrutide can absolutely make caffeine and kratom feel weaker, flatter, or off. Not by blocking them directly, but by changing the terrain that they're trying to work on.
I wonder what that means. I mean, you know, I do think that there's definitely like there's a lot of pleasure that comes with food, right? And I think there's a lot of pleasure with taking kratom. I think that's why I like kratom. That's why other people take it. I mean, I have this new brew sitting right here. I didn't crack it open today because I just didn't feel like I really needed to take kratom this morning for any particular reason. I try to make sure for myself that it's like that I have a reason to be taking it, but there's never really a reason. They're all just made up. But sometimes I do like it for activity, you know, and things like that. You finding anything in there, Ryan?
Yeah, it says it blunts the experience of kratom and caffeine by slowing absorption, dampening the reward circuitry, stabilizing glucose and cortisol, and altering gut function.
Cool. So maybe it could help someone get off kratom. For people that are in pain, hopefully it doesn't blunt the kratom enough to like make their pain worse. That would kind of suck. But yeah, man, I mean, thank you. Whoever sent that in, they really appreciate that, because this is something I was unaware of. So I guess that could be said of all stimulants, right? I mean, that would probably be a fair assessment that almost all stimulants are going to be blunted a little bit by Retatrutide. I would be curious to this person's milligram dosage of Retatrutide. Something that I think is important to mention with Retatrutide is that the milligram dosage that seems to be the sweet spot for a lot of people is anywhere from 1 milligram all the way to about 4 or 6 milligrams. So there might be a lot of experimentation that needs to go on within an individual. But for the person that loves their morning coffee and now has their morning coffee sort of taken away from them by maybe this duller effect via the Retatrutide, maybe that's where you start to play around with the amount that you're taking. You know, maybe you like that morning coffee, like maybe you just don't need that morning coffee anymore, right? Like but you can go either way. I think you get yourself in these situations of like, what matters the most? If you're 350 pounds, what matters the most is that you get yourself into a healthier situation, which is weight loss, weight loss, weight loss, weight loss, weight loss, weight loss. And specifically trying to lose as much body fat as possible. Body fat, body fat, body fat. Try to lose body fat. Do your best to lose that body fat. What are the strategies? What are the methods? What am I going to do today to address my problem? What am I going to do today to address being fat? I'm going to work on being less fat. I've always said things like be less fat because I think that it's easier than like, yo, be skinny. Like, hey, try to be skinny, or try to look like everybody else. Try to lose 100 pounds. Try to lose 200 pounds. Like, that seems really overwhelming. But could someone that struggle with being fat, could they figure out a way to be less fat? And I think the answer is yes. Could someone who struggled financially, could they figure out a way to be wealthy? Maybe that seems overwhelming. So instead, be less broke, be less poor. Just, could you make a little bit tiny teensy bit more money than what you have in the past? Are you capable? Is it possible for you to make 5% more than you did in previous years? Is it possible for you to make, and then what would that look like? How would you do that? Do you have to work? Do you have to have another job? Is there opportunity for more money within the job that you currently have? Right. And you start to kind of think about that. But these strategies towards even being less fat, they could be, what's the root problem? What is the root problem? The root problem is a lot of people I know, they end up binging. How do I find a routine that prevents me from binging? Well, let's ask ChatGPT and see what it says about binging, because it's probably going to tell you, like, hey, use kind of a basic diet, eat frequent meals. And you got to keep in mind that junk food is going to promote binging. You got to keep in mind not sleeping well is going to promote binging. Like, there's blue light is going to promote binging. Blue light is going to sort of wear out your dopamine receptors, and Dolan, that's not even a word, but it's going to make things more dull, just like the Retatrutide is doing. You're constantly getting hit with this blue light. That's why I wear these stupid glasses and look like an idiot, is in hopes of blocking out some of this blue light. That there's other reasons for it, but like just about that, my dopamine's got completely shot at the end of the day. Also, maybe protecting and helping with their circadian rhythm and stuff like that. Let's just move on a little bit to, I just want to talk briefly about my current diet. We'll probably do a whole other show on this, but I'm just going to mention some of it for now. So I work with Mike Fave. Mike is assisting me with a nutritional protocol. I started to become more aware of Mike's work. I have been aware of Mike for a while, but I've started to become more aware of his work when I did the sugar diet. And Mike is somebody who has 200 or 300 grams of sugar almost every single day, with his, 3 or 4 or 500 grams of carbohydrates that he has every day, usually via fruit or fruit juice, combinations of things like that. He's also someone that eats like 3,500 calories a day and weighs 195 pounds and is able to stay lean and in good shape with eating, quite a bit of food. He's a fan of what is called bioenergetics, and that is stuff that was brought to everyone's attention by Ray Peat. And so he's a disciple of Ray Peat. Mike runs a podcast with Jay Feldman, and they both share a lot of the same beliefs. They both are totally 100% against seed oils. And they are also against this idea. And this definitely needs to be a separate podcast, but like some of the stuff recently that's been shouted by RFK about sugar being poison is just pure nonsense. It's really just a trash statement by somebody who has good authority and somebody who's way smarter than that. And to just say that sugar is poison is like, it's a ridiculous proposition. People probably don't know this, but whether you're on a low carb diet or whether you're on a diet that is higher in carbohydrate, your blood sugar, your glucose levels are probably about the same. More recently, there's been a study, and Jay Feldman pointed this out. There's been a study where I think 80% of the calories in the diet was coming from sucrose, which is table sugar. And people had better insulin resistance than a group that ate a lower carb diet, which is like Like, what are we talking about here? So if you get rid of carbohydrates completely, you're putting a Band-Aid on a potential issue with insulin resistance, or you're just putting it on pause since you're not dealing with insulin that much, right? But if you want to train your insulin sensitivity, it only gets trained. Your insulin sensitivity only gets trained by eating carbohydrate. Now, what type of carbohydrates you choose is a little bit more up to you. You got your starches, which are going to the glucose that you're going to make from your starches is going to be more stored in your muscle tissue, and the more sugary stuff that you have, and the more you lean towards fructose, the more that might get stored in your liver. But I think that your body just arranges stuff in whatever way it needs it, and whatever demands that it has, and whatever things you're imposing upon your body, it's going to, if you train your biceps and triceps and you have a good amount of blood glucose, I think that glucose is going to be shifted into those areas where your body is fatigued and where your body is worked for the day. All the way to the point where when we had Andy Galpin on the podcast, I was like, oh yeah, it's kind of like as if you do squats and then you go eat a bunch of carbs. It's as if they sort of go to your legs. He's like, no, it's not as if that is exactly what happens. The carbs, they go shuttling right into your whatever muscles you just worked for that moment. So stuff like that is really interesting and really fascinating. The types of sugars and types of carbs, and whether you're drinking orange juice or Gatorade, it gets to be really interesting. And then there seems to be like an upregulation when you have multiple types of sugar post-workout, which is really another fascinating thing. So if you had like Gatorade and orange juice, that might be like really amazing, because that might hit your bloodstream a little faster, or your body can convert those sugars into glucose maybe faster or something like that. I forget the exact terminology, but what'd you find over there, Ryan?
Oh, I was just looking up the RFK sugar stuff.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I'll send you a link, and we can do a separate show on that. But anyway, I'm working with Mike Fave. He has me on basically a balanced diet. And many of you are like, oh, after he's done with the sugar diet, but he's going to land on a balanced diet, and pretty soon he'll be counting calories. Who knows? Who knows where I'll end up? But this diet feels good to me. It feels fun. It feels like, for performance wise, it feels like it's great. In terms of being able to lose weight doing it, I'm not there yet. I think that one of the reasons why I chose low carb over the years was it helped me with my hunger. The fats, they slow down the digestion, just like the GLP-1s in some way. And that strategy was effective for me to keep my calories lower, being like keto or being low carb or the war on carbs or whatever you want to call it. And that worked for many years, and I've always loved that. And maybe ultimately that will be the answer for me to get down to 200. Maybe I'll have to go back and revisit that diet with the Retatrutide. I don't know. But I've shifted to this diet, and it's something that I'm doing for now. And some of the stuff I said about stearic acid and chocolate and all that stuff is all Mike Fave driven stuff. And I have orange juice a couple times a day. I eat rice. I eat potatoes. Eating a lot of beef still, chicken here and there, fish here and there. Still drinking the steak shakes, still drinking the total carnivore shakes. Not much has changed there. My body fat percentage is higher than it was when I was doing the sugar diet. The sugar diet worked great for me for getting like really shredded up, especially when Ryan and I did some of those like photos and stuff like that. I definitely was leaner than I am at the moment, but I'm not sweating it. I actually intentionally wanted to back off and back away from sort of that chronic weight loss mode. I wanted to be careful that I didn't go after something, and I didn't go after like being lean, despite maybe, having some of my blood work off and stuff like that. So I've been really working diligently on getting the blood work situated, and and for a little while I was taking like other things with testosterone. I was taking like Masteron and things like that, and it wasn't showing favorable results for my lipid profile. And so I was like, you know what, I need to just scratch that. So then I went back to just doing testosterone, got better blood work done. Now I'm on testosterone and a little bit of primobolan, and we're going to kind of ride with that and see what that does. And if that has any negative inputs on my blood work, I will then get rid of the primobolan. And then maybe I'll get good blood work again, and then maybe I'll try another combination, because it's nice to have something with testosterone. But if all I'm left with is utilizing some testosterone, then maybe that's where I'll have to be. Not really any giant changes with the food, other than like, I do eat some sourdough bread. I have some macadamia nuts, some macadamia nut oil, macadamia nut butter. I eat honey. It's all stuff. I mean, I was kind of already doing some of this with the sugar diet, so there's really not much stuff new there. I guess what is new is the amount of fat I'm eating. I'm eating probably like 80 to 100 grams of fat, and that fat still needs to probably come down for me personally, to lose the weight that I want to lose and to augment my body the way that I want to. I personally feel that needs to be lower. I as much as I understand the calories in, calories out thing, I think that there's like a body composition thing that happens. And I think that, I don't know. I think maybe for me, like the experiments I've run on my own body, it seems like a 33% of each macronutrient. I think I'd get leaner if there was less percentage of calories coming from fat. But we'll see. I'm still doing this diet this way, and it's fairly balanced. I want to say like per meal, it's probably like 20 grams, maybe around 20 grams of fat, 45 protein, and like 100 carbs. That's like per meal, depending on whether I have 4 or 5 meals. It's like, somewhere in that range. Calories for the day, 3,500 to 4,000 or so. So I'm eating, quite a bit. One thing that is interesting is that I've gotten to a certain weight and I'm not really gaining weight. So some mornings I'm around 218, 219, and before bed sometimes 225 or so. But that's been interesting. So I've been like, I feel like I'm eating like a nice amount of food, but I'm really not gaining weight. And maybe some of that has to do with some of this fat loss stack that I'm on. And so maybe this will, just gradually help me lose some body fat, but maybe overall I won't really lose a ton of weight. So we'll have to kind of see, and we'll have to continue to manipulate and continue to test and see what's going on. But keep in mind, I've only been doing this stack for just a couple weeks. I want to say it's been about 3 weeks, maybe going into like week 4 now. So I would say that the next 4 weeks will really be telling. Like weeks 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 or so are going to be really telling, because now all these peptides that I've taken should really start to take effect now. And that'll be interesting to see what happens from here on out. Anything to add, Ryan?
No.
All right. Strength is never weak. This week is never strength. Catch you guys later. Bye.